You're on 94.1 FM 3WBC with Jerry Guirguis presenting
Downtown, everything's waiting for you. Downtown.
And now here's Jerry Guirguis, 94.1 FM 3WBC, the voice of the Inner East.
Hang around and let your problems surround you. There are movie shows downtown. Maybe you know some little places to go to where they never close. Downtown, just listen to the rhythm of a gentle bossa nova. You'll be dancing with them too before the night is over. Happy again. The lights so much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. So go downtown, where all the lights are bright. Downtown, waiting for you tonight. Downtown, you're gonna be alright now. Downtown, downtown.
Hi and welcome. I'm Jerry Guirguis, interviewing Mr. Paul Dellios, Principal and Founding Partner at Dellios West Co. Here on 94.1 FM 3WBC, downtown, Thursday, the 17th of August, 2023. Hi and welcome, Paul.
Good evening, Jerry, and good evening to our audience.
Thank you so much. Let's talk about mobile speed cameras, the ones that are mounted inside a parked car by the roadside. The scenario goes like this. You're driving at 60 kilometres an hour on a suburban street or a road that is not a freeway or a major highway. You approach a 40-kilometre sign, and from what you see ahead, it makes sense. There's a large number of builders, workers are going about their daily work, moving in and out of a building site and onto the road. Yes, it is a typical large commercial building construction site. You can also see half of one side of the road is blocked off for these activities. Then suddenly a very, very bright light captures your attention in your rear vision mirror. Immediately you go, I've been pinned. A speeding camera. Sure enough, 3 weeks later, a ticket arrives in your letterbox. Now, Mr. Dellios, I know you're a legal man. We don't want to accuse anyone, but our listeners would like to understand what is the legal process in setting up a mobile speed camera.
Okay, the legal process. Well, let's start from the start. Speed cameras in Victoria are under the control of the Department of Justice and Community Safety. Now, just in case you haven't heard, the Department of Justice changed its name to the Department of Justice and Community Safety. And they emphasise that speed cameras are for community safety. They are controlled by a committee called the Road Safety Camera Committee. This committee is comprised of and chaired by a representative of Victoria Police and has representatives from the Department of Transport and the Department of Justice and Community Safety. And it is their job to approve camera locations. They approve fixed camera locations, and the criteria for fixed camera locations are that the location crash history is relevant, data on fatal and injury crashes, the road type, the site suitability for a camera, and demonstrated accident risk. Then, and there are slightly in excess of 450 fixed camera sites in Victoria.
Right.
They include cameras that are only speed cameras and cameras that also double as red light cameras.
Right. Yep.
Then with mobile locations, now you'll be pleased to hear that there are 2,000 approved mobile locations in the state of Victoria.
Right.
Just in case you missed one of them.
Right.
These likewise have to be approved in advance, and they have to be approved again based on some criteria. And the criteria include recent history of speed-related crashes, complaints of excessive speeding, and those that are identified by Victoria Police to be a speed-related problem location. So they're the criteria. Now, the members of the committee who govern this may propose sites themselves, but so can members of the public and someone like a site manager that you referred to would qualify as a member of the public.
Right.
And other people like members of parliament, believe it or not. It's a funny thing that. So all of that and how mobile road safety cameras, and mind you, they call them road safety cameras.
Yes, of course.
They don't call them speeding cameras.
Oh.
They don't call them fine collection devices.
No, you're honourable. I'll stand corrected from now on.
There is an operations manual. It's, in fact, a policy and operations manual. And it starts off setting out the philosophy behind the road safety program or the mobile road safety program. And the philosophy is that the mobile road safety program is based on well-documented evidence of the relationship between speeding and road trauma.
Yep.
And the program aims to reduce road trauma through changing driver behaviour.
Yep.
And they go on to say that the operating principles are based on the fact that the cameras are to be deployed on the basis that speeding drivers can be detected anywhere, anytime across Victoria. In other words, they're not picking on particular locations, and no one should feel comfortable in any particular location that they won't be subject to a mobile road safety camera. Now, as you described, these are the cameras that you often see inside parked vehicles, but they can also be on a tripod on the side of the road.
Right.
They are not radar guns
No.
that police stand on the side of the road and use. Radar guns that the police use have a different name, and I must admit I can't remember it. And they are in addition to the ones that we've been speaking about.
Right.
So it goes on to say that the idea is to create a general deterrence and a specific deterrence. And the general deterrence is aimed at influencing driver behaviour change and lowering the number of crashes and, of course, increasing compliance with speed limits. Specific deterrence is provided by the issuing of speeding infringements. So you've got the general deterrence based on publicity and the knowledge that there could be a camera anywhere, and you've got the specific deterrence. Those people who are caught speeding will get themselves an infringement notice, and of course all the consequences that follow from that. So what they're saying is that in order to achieve Victoria's road safety objectives, they consider that the most effective manner enforcement activity must be consistent, meaningful, and applied at high risk times. So that's the general basis for doing this. Interestingly, the people who they have operating the cameras, who happen to be called mobile road safety camera operators, surprisingly, are people who are authorised by a particular department in the police force called the Traffic Camera Office. And those people, they're the only written qualifications that I've been able to find is that they have a good knowledge of this policy and manual that I'm referring to, and they know how to set up and operate the devices. And the devices have got a fancy technical name that we needn't worry about.
Right.
Site selection is that they must use these cameras at properly selected sites and be able to withstand public scrutiny, clearly demonstrating fair and reasonable speed enforcement in the interest of improving road safety. So that's the criteria that establishes where they choose the site, but the site they choose has to be approved in advance. They can't just go on the basis of there being a request from a member of the public or from a site operator or anybody else. There are other restrictions in theory, and that is one of these mobile cameras should not be set up within 300 metres of a change in the speed limit in an area. But there are exceptions to that 300-metre rule, and the exceptions include that it could be less than 300 metres if the change in speed is because there's a school zone nearby.
Sure.
Or a business zone nearby. You know how these days you go through a lot of suburban shopping centres and the speed limit is reduced to 40 k's. So there are exceptions to the rule about not being within 300 metres of a change in speed zone. And obviously the presumption is that it would be considered to be unfair to have these devices too close to a change in speed zone. Or another way of putting it is they give you 300 metres to slow down before you get into trouble.
Fair enough. That's acceptable. That's but a construction site is not a business site.
No. So the truth is that apart from getting it approved in advance as a location, and that it now is one of the 2,000 approved locations, it's not going to be something that just pops up. It's not like, a pop-up fish and chip van that thinks, oh, this is a good idea. There are exceptions to that, which we'll get onto in a minute. There's another rule, and the next rule is that they should avoid setting them up during peak traffic periods where the traffic flow itself is sufficient to slow the speed down. Because you don't need a deterrent.
Correct.
If you just can't go any faster because the traffic's banked up for miles in front of you. So somebody, has gone to a fair bit of trouble to work out these guidelines here. However, there is this exception, and the exception is that a person whose title is Regional Road Policing Inspector, of course, a member of the police force, or the officer in charge of the Traffic Camera Office can determine that a mobile road safety camera should be used for speed enforcement relating to a special occasion or programmed event in an area where intelligence indicates the risk of speeding on a special occasion is anticipated. And what they've used as examples for special occasions, believe it or not, snow traffic, holiday traffic, and the Phillip Island Grand Prix.
Okay.
So what are they indicating with those examples? They're indicating that it's their perception that people who are going to the snow, who are driving on holidays, or who are going to or from the Phillip Island Grand Prix are more likely than not to be exceeding the speed limit.
Yes,
and therefore, they should be targeted as a special occasion site. However, that still has to comply with the general principles that are in this manual. They're not supposed to have them nearby to where a policeman does stand there with a radar gun.
Yep.
And they're also not supposed to have them nearby the newest version of traffic cameras, and that is the portable device and seatbelt detection cameras.
That's fair enough.
The new ones,
can do both.
the new ones that are supposed to be picking up people who are using mobile phones when they're not supposed to be using, and driving without seatbelts. Now, in relation to those locations,
they can't be used.
There's only 150 of those around Victoria. Now, the good news is all of these locations, fixed, mobile, and that category of the portable device detection cameras, the locations of all of them are actually published and updated every month. So you can go to a website. All you have to do is Google Safety Cameras Victoria, and you'll get yourself onto, actually there's more than one website, but you go there and you can find and you can print out the list. Now, you won't be surprised to hear I didn't bother printing out the list of 2,000.
Not surprised.
But what I thought might be a worthwhile exercise is to print out a list of the 150 portable device ones, the new ones.
Right.
So here we are. Let me tell you that the most popular location to have these, and there is 4 of them in Castlemaine.
And you would say,
has someone assessed that the residents of Castlemaine are likely to be breaching the rules either in relation to basically mobile phones or seatbelts, but there are 4 of them. Now, that is the largest number in any particular location in Victoria. In the suburban area, there's 3 different suburbs that have 3 locations in each of them of these cameras. One of them is Berwick, the other one is Caroline Springs, and the third one is Tullamarine. And in Tullamarine, believe it or not, it's on 3 different approaches, not the freeway, but 3 different approaches to the airport. So presumably people who are about to hop on a plane or have just hopped off a plane are most likely to be either on the mobile phone when they shouldn't be, or silly enough to figure they've had enough of seatbelts on the aeroplane. They don't want to have the seatbelt on them while they're in the car.
While they get in the car to get there.
So pick a suburb, Jerry.
Let's go let's go Mr. Daniel Andrews, Burundara.
Well, Burundara is not a suburb, of course, it's a municipality.
Yes, of course. So we're looking at Kew, Deepdene, Baldwin, Surrey Hills.
Kew, Deepdene. Okay, well, we'll go alphabetically. Deepdene, no.
No.
Baldwin, Baldwin, no. Surrey Hills, no.
Right. Okay.
And from my perspective, the closest one that might affect me, not surprisingly, is in East Ivanhoe,
Yep.
in Lower Heidelberg Road.
There is one.
So that's interesting because very soon after Lower Heidelberg Road changes its name and becomes Rosanna Road, what is there?
Freeway.
There's a fixed traffic light camera just outside the Warringal Village Shopping Centre, which you know very well.
Yes, I know. I'm aware of that position. Yes.
So obviously this must be more than 300 metres away from that location.
And there's also a police station around the corner.
Yes, there is, but they don't often stand outside the police station with their radar guns.
No, they might just do that.
Well, the trouble is they might pick up other police cars
in a hurry. Yeah, in a hurry to pick up some offenders. So going back to your policies, it's in the interest of the public, and the public can initiate these mobile cameras to be installed. And it doesn't have to be approved and published before it's installed. So it can be done on the fly.
No, it can't be done on the fly. It's got to be a site that's approved in advance and it's published before at the end of the last day of the previous month before it can be utilised. That's why I was saying that you can go and look up these locations, and they're published every month. So if this printout that I was looking at for the mobile device detection cameras, that was actually dated the 31st of July, and it's implemented in August. So at the end of this month, if they decide to move some of them and approve new locations for September, then they'll publish that. And they don't give the exact location, but they give the name of the street that the camera is in.
Right, okay.
So the four Castlemaine examples, they actually named 4 different streets in Castlemaine.
Yeah.
I didn't know Castlemaine had 4 streets.
There was only like 2 pubs there in Castlemaine, but everything has gone bigger. I travelling through the countryside, travels to Bendigo, places, suburbs between here and Bendigo were tiny but now they're major suburbs. And so you can imagine the one street towns and now super towns. And I think in the early days, Bendigo was 50, 60,000. It's over 300,000.
Well, Bendigo doesn't get a mention for the mobile phone and seatbelt camera locations.
Right.
Out of the list, the one that is my favourite one is Tutgaruk.
Ah, yes, good old. On your way to, I wonder why they actually, I suppose they've done their homework and they figured out that it is one of these hot spots that you would likely to what they want to do is deter people from speeding. And I do recall speaking to people from road safety, and they always mentioned the 3 E's, and that's elimination, and then you've got E for enforcements, and the other E, of course, the elimination is to take away the danger from common grounds. So if a hotspot is there, then you figure out why is that so, and re-engineer the hotspot, or eliminate, the narrow bend, or whatever. So that's engineering. But the other E, which is enforcement, and the understanding is that if you penalize, you change the behavior. You do through hefty fines. Then you've got a human behavioral change, and that's what they want to sort of reach out and change the driving behavior of these people driving over the speed limit.
Well, that's what's emphasised in this policy and manual, and what is not hardly mentioned, except in that one category of specific deterrence. There's hardly any other mention to do with the penalties and the fines. It's more about the actual administration of it, and for obvious reasons, even if the government is reliant on the income to some degree, there's no emphasis on it at all in any of the materials that any of us can find published. Whether there's any internal guidelines that we can't see, who knows?
Okay, Mr. Dellios, again, I'm running out of time. I've got warning bells coming at me. And so I want to thank you once again. Thank you so much. And we look forward to having another chat on another subject soon.
It's my pleasure.